Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Ben Townsend, who is the founder and CEO of Tracker Products. Ben, thanks for joining us today. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit and look forward to hearing more about your story and your journey as an entrepreneur. First, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, so I don't know how broad you want me to get on this, but I've lived in Northern Kentucky my entire life. I think within about 10 minutes of the same spot all the time. So I'm a Kentucky native, but I love to travel all over. Owning a business and working with police all across the country has given me lots of ability for travel, but I always love to come home. So I guess that's a little bit on the personal side. I have a wife and 4 teenage kids. So we've got a lot going on in that world right now. And actually, I say teenage, one of them is now 20. So I've got one that is not in the teenage years. And my background is coming out of high school, actually right in the middle of college, which would have been in the mid 90s. I started my own computer company, having no idea what I was doing. And 30 years later, I'm still in business for myself. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time.
Yeah. So tell us what does Tracker Products do? You serve the police, obviously, but tell us a little more.
Yeah. So to even dig into the background, because this is a little bit helpful, in the late 90s, the internet started to become a thing. I mean, I've been around long enough that I was there when internet and AOL and CompuServe, if you remember all those names, were just coming onto the scene. And so as part of my computer business, I started to get into Windows servers, email servers, web. I loved web stuff. The idea of the web just really fascinated me. So we started doing web hosting for a bunch of clients, which was pretty common. But I even knew at that time that was just a commodity and people could pick up and move around. And so, we were looking for some way to build something to where people couldn't just pick up and move around like a website would allow them to do. Now, I had no idea it was going to lead to evidence management, but in 2004, we had a local client ask us to go find an evidence management platform. And so somebody working for me simply went out to find a product that existed. And when we couldn't find one, long story short, we decided to build one. And I wasn't really in favor of doing it, but we did it. And 6 months later, we're still building, and we weren't making any money on it. And we were so far underwater. I was looking for a way to get out. So we started looking to resell to other PDs, police departments in Northern Kentucky, which was one step short of let's toss it out on Google and see if we can find a market for this. And when I say I had no idea what I was getting into, I legitimately had no game plan whatsoever. We were just trying to exist. And that was 20 years ago, almost 1,000 clients ago. We sell to police departments and even private entities all around the world. So I wish I could tell you I had some idea of what this was going to become. I would be lying if I had any idea where we would be at today, because I really did not.
Yeah. Well, you just struck on one of the fundamentals of building a good business. Whenever I talk to people about ideas that they have, there's that, do you have a passion for it? You obviously had a passion for technology and the internet.
Yes.
You had a passion for it. Do you have the skills to do it? Obviously, you had the skills to do it. And the third is there a market for it? And that's the one people often forget. People go, oh, follow your heart, chase your dreams. Well, no,
right.
not if no one will pay for it.
That's right.
And you found something there that, hey, people would pay for. And God bless you for that, because you just turned that into a tremendous business with over 1,000 clients. And how many people do you employ as part of that?
Yeah, so we have 35 employees that are all. So what's fascinating about that is we don't even have an office anymore where everybody meets. I mean, up until 2018, we had an office in Erlanger, Kentucky, and we
Mhm.
were hiring people in the Cincinnati area. So before COVID even hit, it began to become a real struggle to find talent in a growing company that was in Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati is not known as a technology hub of the world. And so, it was difficult getting high quality talent. And so we started to consider maybe it didn't matter that people came to an office to work. So we started hiring people remotely. And then
Mhm.
by 2019, we were shutting the office down. We just decided to go completely remote, which was, 1 year before
Perfect timing.
COVID hits. And like everybody is scrambling for what to do. And we were already working from home. And so it was, other than kids being there all the time, it was not a disruption in our business at all to send everybody home because everybody was already home. And at this point in time, our ability to hire people, so we just hired 2 programmers. One is out of New Jersey, one is out of Florida, and they're high
Mhm.
quality talent, and
Right.
so it's like there. I enjoy an office a little bit because I like being around people, but you never say never, but I just don't think we're ever going to go back to an office environment because the benefits of hiring all over the country are just too great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think the trade-off comes in the challenges of building a culture, and I know that from our conversation before, culture is very important to you. So,
Oh man.
what are you doing about that? How are you addressing that challenge?
That is, I mean, listen, all I can say is you're absolutely right. That is the most difficult thing we face is while you get the benefits of hiring anywhere, you don't have an office. At the same point, you're not sitting and directly engaging with people. So it's hard to even build relationships. And so there's a couple of things we do pretty consistently. Number one, we get everybody together in Cincinnati once a year. And the
Mm,
entire focus of it is just to bring people together. I mean, we talk about the company, we talk about things we want to improve on, but primarily it's meant to just get everybody together. So that's once a year. And then every 6 months, each of the teams get together. And so at
mm,
least twice a year, you're face to face with people. And then every week, we have a company wide phone call on Zoom. And these are really lighthearted. They're meant to be fun and engaging. And we try to get people to talk and interact with one another. So, yeah, you got to work hard to do those things because most people don't like Zooms and
yeah.
but we've got some people that work really hard to make those engaging and fun so that people feel like they're getting to know and interacting in people's lives even though they're thousands of miles away.
Yeah. I'm part of a coaching organization. We're all independent coaches, but we try to build that culture. And we have a monthly meeting. And
Yeah,
sometimes we'll just break people out uh,
sure,
into rooms, 4 or 5 coaches in a room, random, and just, hey, here's a question for you to ask and,
sure.
and to talk about. And just, chances are you're going to meet a few people and get to know people a little bit that way. And it's not the same as being in
Right.
person, but it beats just emails for sure.
Interestingly, very recently, one of our admins made a suggestion of starting a coffee chat. And so
Yeah.
the idea behind that is you break everybody in the company up into teams of 3 or 4 people, and you're constantly rotating. So every time you do a coffee chat, it's different people. But they give us like 5 questions. And within a matter of 30 minutes, you're going through these 5 questions and everybody's answering them. And it may be as simple as what's your favorite beverage to drink? And,
Yeah.
but these things turn into a really fun time of getting to know people. And in reality, if you're in an office setting, you may not even do that. So the fact that we have to push ourselves to do that, we may, I'm going out on a limb with this. We may be doing things that you don't normally do in an office because of the convenience of being in an office together.
Right. Yeah. I've got another client that they're all virtual as well. And they sometimes they call them breathing sections. They'll just all get on Zoom and then they just go on and just, it's almost like a virtual cubicle kind of environment.
Sure. Yeah.
They're not really talking to each other, but they're
Yeah.
each individually working. And then someone will say, hey, and ask a
Right.
question like you would across the cubicle wall. And,
Sure.
it's interesting. They're just there's lots of different ways of trying. It's not going to be the same, but it's never going to be the same. So
Right.
quit. I would say quit whining about what you can't change and figure out how to
Just the
make
way it is. You
it
got to
work.
work within it and figure it out.
Yeah. So so you 20 plus years ago you started this business and you well you actually 30 years ago I guess, and then
Yeah,
20 years ago kind of turned into
that's right.
the police application.
Yes.
um, when you started the business, and I know it's harder to think back that many years, but what was the biggest surprise before being a business owner, after being a business owner? What were you maybe not expecting?
Well, I think what's interesting about that is, I mean, I started at such a young age. I just didn't know anything different. I mean, in reality,
Mm,
I'm 50 years old. I'm thankful to be 50 years old. But when you consider you're 50 and you've spent 30 years operating your own business, in reality, I started when I didn't know anything. I didn't know
yeah.
anything about anything. And that's one of the great things about starting young is you typically have a lot more energy and you don't know what you don't know, so you're not even aware of what all the barriers are and the difficulties you're going to face. And so I think what's sort of interesting about that question is it's when I look back over 30 years that I have a much better assessment now of just what I didn't know.
Mm,
And I'm also thankful that I didn't know the things that were going to be hard, because I might have been less likely to
yeah.
jump in. Like had you told me on day one, hey, when you get married and have kids, there's going to be times where you're not taking a paycheck. Like I
Mm,
might have been like, whoa, wait a minute, hold
right.
on. I thought owning your own business automatically meant some level of success and prosperity. And all you had to do was throw out your widget maker, and immediately everybody was going to be interested in that. And
Yeah.
that, obviously that is not the case.
Yeah.
And so it took a long time to learn, and I'm still learning. So, what was your original question? I'm trying to think back to what
Well,
you
just
were
what was
asking.
what that's unexpected aspect of being a business owner, and I think you just
Everything,
hit
like
on it.
everything was unexpected. I didn't know anything. And to be honest with you, you could go to school for years and learn a lot of intricacies. And again, you can launch out into business and just simply have no idea what you're doing. Some of the brightest minds start businesses and fail them all the time.
Yeah.
And so, I think for me, there was just a tenacity that I wasn't going to quit. I was very
Mhm.
passionate about what I was doing, and I had purpose. I think that in the end, that was the ultimate driver. Was I felt like I had purpose in this world and what I was doing, and so even when it got really tough, I didn't know any other thing, and I wasn't going to stop.
Yeah. Did you find greater purpose when when once it took off, this police solution? Because I mean, at one point you were doing more general internet stuff and web
Yeah,
hosting, and I've been in that kind of world, and then I've also been in the world where we were serving government, serving the army, serving the
yeah,
police, serving the FBI, and I know for me there was this aspect of greater purpose when you're serving a clientele that has a
sure.
greater purpose. Did you find the same, or
So
do you
I
find
don't
the
know.
same?
Yeah, we'll see what you think of this answer. I found purpose at the bottom of the barrel. Like I can tell you when I finally feel like, not I feel like, I know I found purpose in this world and in this business. I was ready to quit. So it was around 2008. We were 5 years into it. I had these expectations that this was just going to blow up and everybody was going to be interested in it. And man, it took years, because we bootstrapped. Like we don't have any
Mhm.
investment dollars from anywhere.
Right.
Everything we done has been bootstrapped. And so I expected success. And so some years into it, when there was not a lot of success, and there were a lot of people like, what are you doing? Like, are you even going to be able to pull this off?
Mhm.
I was actually about ready to quit because I felt like I was wasting my time and there was no value and purpose in what I was doing. And so interestingly enough, it was a pastor at my church when I sat down and I just sort of confessed that I think I'm wasting my time.
Mm.
And he helped direct me in a way where I was like, oh my goodness, like we can have tremendous value and purpose. And I felt like there was value and purpose in the law enforcement community. I felt like what we were doing, but I didn't have purpose in life. And
Mm.
so that is very different than maybe, if you don't have purpose in life that is driving purpose in business, that is driving your daily activity, none of it's going to matter anyways. And so
Amen.
when I began to find purpose in life, it all trickled downhill. And that did not mean immediate success, by the way. That
All
was
right.
not like, oh, great, now you got it. Now that's what everybody needed, was that you had purpose. It gave me drive that I didn't know I had. And I was able to endure for a lot more years until things got to a point where it was like, hey, we're starting to see some success. But that was,
Yeah.
man, that was most people think you start
It's
a business and it's overnight. I like the Dave Ramsey quote, like, I was an overnight success 20 years in the making, right?
yeah.
Like, it was like it took 20 years to hit that overnight success, that so many people looked at it and were like, oh, you're successful. How did you pull that off so quickly? And it's like, oh my goodness, if you only understood,
Right.
that is not the story for most people.
Yeah. And the uh the drive and tenacity and everything that takes to get through those first year, 2 years, 3 years, every business
Yeah,
is different, but
sure.
it's I I seldom see, and I've seen a few, someone who just like starts a business and instantly is like rounding third, hitting home runs. It just doesn't happen very often. Those are unicorns. Uh,
Yeah, and not only that, even if they have that kind of success, that can be its own debilitating problem, that you're having so much success. So I would say for me, in fact, most businesses, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things wrong. I
sure.
have valued the fact that I've made those mistakes and learned those things when we didn't have a lot going on. So if I think about bringing on equity, like, in the world we are, especially technology, SaaS software, there's
Oh yeah.
such a pull toward, you need private equity, you need to get money, you need to ramp this thing up. And I'm like, in hindsight, what I would say is, all that would have done was equip me to make much bigger mistakes than what I was capable of making at the time that we were making them. So we were making mistakes, but by and large, they were a lot smaller. And I was learning things that were going to become very valuable when I hoped we have money down the road. So because of those early mistakes, now that we're dealing with more income, I'm like, yeah, but man, I remember the early days, and I'm not going to change just because now we're doing $5 million a year in business, not 50,000 a year, which is
Yeah.
what we were doing early. Like just to get to $50,000 in the first year was incredibly difficult.
Hmm. Yeah. That's and it just ties back to, you know, that what you were talking about, the purpose and knowing that, you're doing good things. I mean, you're feeding people, you're putting food on the table of your employees,
All right.
in addition to helping law enforcement and all these other things that you're doing. There's pressure that comes with that, but there's also a very rewarding aspect of that as well. I know.
And on a side note, I work really hard to speak into and come alongside the people that work for us, because I want them to have purpose too. This is not, a real quick side story. A couple of years ago, I lost a developer. He moved on, took a much higher paying job, which I understood. But he and I were having lunch. This is when I was going through the whole, what is my purpose? So when I began to find purpose, I had lunch with him, and I'm like, I asked him one day, just sort of matter of factly, what do you think the mission and purpose of our company was? Like, this is like, right, like
Mhm.
if you're in
Yeah.
business, any employee in the company should be able to say, well, here is what the mission and purpose is.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, he hit me right between the eyes. He just answered the best he could. He's like, well, I just assumed the purpose of the business was to line your pockets.
Well,
And I was
and
like,
there,
wow, what an answer. And I'm like, oh my goodness, when you look at what we're trying to accomplish, and in giving of what we've got and being stewards, and we've got a much higher calling, I was like, oh my goodness, if that's what he believes, what does everybody else believe? So that's when
yeah,
immediately I got hit in between the eyes of,
yeah,
hey, you as an owner can have a purpose, but man, if you're not coming alongside your people and constantly talking about what is the mission and why we're doing what we're doing, they could be operating in a world where it's just lining your pockets. And
Yeah.
if that was true, that would be one thing. But if that's the furthest from what you're trying to accomplish, no wonder people are coming and going all the time, because they don't find value in what they're doing. And I was like, it was, what a thing to learn.
Yeah. I had a similar story, and I wasn't the owner of the company, but I asked the technicians who were doing our field work, and I got that as an answer. And then and then because they felt, well, we're just here to make money for him, because he's making a lot. He drives around in his Bentley and in his Mercedes, right? And we're scraping by. And
I was gonna say, but
what,
John, I'm driving an F-150 with 200,000 miles on it. I don't have a boat. I've got an old camper that my family and I were using. I was like, I'm not living in the lap of luxury. So it's like,
right.
but again, the point is, if you don't inform people and talk passionately about why you're doing what you're doing, they're going to default to the lowest common denominator, and that's it.
Yeah. And that was actually where I was going. I said, well, what do you all do? What do you do for our clients? And our clients, our biggest client was the FBI.
Yeah.
And we were responsible for the platform that they did all their secure communications, between offices and headquarters and all that kind of stuff. And so they said, oh, well, we hang monitors and install equipment and
Right.
and I said, you guys realize that, you're putting in technology that enables our top law enforcement agency to catch bad guys, and to fight terrorism, because that company grew tremendously after 9/11 because
because it blew up.
They weren't communicating effectively. That was one of the big commission report things, was that the agencies weren't communicating effectively with one another, and so the FBI spent a lot of money on our technology to to improve communications. Like, that is a higher purpose. I mean, that you're helping. You're helping the good guys catch the bad guys. You should feel good about that.
Yeah.
And they never looked at it that way. They just, we just pull cable and install equipment. And
when that is somebody's outlook on things, they're a lot less committed. They can pick up and move anywhere
100%.
else, because it leads. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that for so many years. And when I began to learn some of those basic leadership principles, it began to change our company. I would say the most common thing I faced prior to figuring out purpose and talking into employees' lives was, I couldn't keep people for years. Like, it was every 2 to 3 years we were rotating our entire employee base. And today I've got people that are on the verge of passing 9 years. Like, a handful. Like, most of my leadership team has been with me for north of 7 years. And so, like, I can't attribute to anything. It's not anything I've done. It's helping people find value and purpose in what they're doing. And when you do,
I think it is something you did. You discovered that, and
that's true. Yes.
And you did the second part, which a lot of people forget, is you figured it out for yourself, and then you imparted it to your people.
When I first had the purpose, it took me years to figure out that you've got to share it. And so I think the joke, and I don't know, I sort of feel like if there was a college course on all of this stuff, I missed the first year of it.
There's
and
not.
It's like, but I think some of that you learn it in the School of Hard Knocks. So I joke that I've got 20 master's degrees on the wall of and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, from the School of Hard Knocks, I can tell you in finance what not to do and what to do, leadership, what to do and what not to do. And it's just been learned over 30 years of doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's change topic a little bit. You mentioned you have got teenage plus 1 years, kids and marriage and everything else. And you travel the country and you do a lot of stuff. How do you find balance? And however you define balance?
I wish that was easy to come. I mean, it is significantly better today because the demands were as great as they were in the early years. I mean, when you're a young starting company, generally you wear every hat. And so
Yeah.
sales, marketing, answering the phone, when you've got 35 people now and you can hire people strategically, the demands on me are not as great. So I'm able to have more downtime, but I will say, you got to be committed to that. You got to know what balance looks like. Like, you got to talk to your wife. Like,
Yeah.
you could say, I'm in balance, and she's over there screaming, this is anything but balance. The same thing with your kids. Like,
Yeah.
so here's one of the things I did that was a little odd. When my kids were growing up, all right, and I did do a lot of travel, I would bring my family along with me, up to
Mhm.
the point where, when my kids were old enough, I would do client meetings, and I remember when I had my oldest son, he was probably 11 at the time. I was doing a pitch of our software in Colorado. I flew him out with me. I took him into that meeting, and like, I didn't even care. Like, if somebody would have been like, why are you bringing your kids? I would have been like, I want to spend time with my kids. If all I do is run around the country and don't make specific time for them, they're going to grow up and not know anything about me, because my tendency and propensity is to just sink myself into the business. And I didn't want to be that way.
Yeah.
So I would take them on
That's a
road
cool
trips
story.
with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, that's a cool story.
Yeah. So that's one of the ways. I mean, it's hard to
Did you
find
close that
balance.
deal?
What's that?
Did you close that deal?
I did. As a matter of
There
fact,
you go.
they're still a client. And he and I went to the Rockies, the Colorado Rockies ball game while we were out
Yeah.
there, and we drove around, because my background has always been, my kids are ultimately not going to care about any money that is produced. My goal in this world is not to set my kids up in a way to where they don't have to work. I feel like, listen, I want you to go out and get the experiences that I did. There's not going to be just a windfall of money when this is all said and done with, because I've got greater purpose. But what I always felt like is, they're going to remember those times of traveling with me, especially the ones where it was just me and them. Like
Yeah.
dad took me and we flew out there. We sat in a client meeting. Now, what's funny is, my son, what he remembers, it wound up being a 3-hour meeting, and he was so bored. So it's funny that at his age now, he's 18, he remembers, oh my goodness, that was the longest meeting ever. He's not at the age where I remember where dad took me and spent time with me. He'll
Yeah.
eventually remember that part. So
Of course.
I will say, I just feel like I try to be very intentional with time, coaching their teams. I was a big soccer fan. I coached high school soccer back in my early years before I had kids. So, man, when they were into sports, I wasn't just on the sidelines watching, I was coaching. And so I was always engaged in their activities and taking them to places, just so that we were spending time together, because I felt like that was the most important thing.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's on the horizon for you? You've had some great accomplishments. I know that you're
Sure.
a believer in giving back and sharing your success, and I love all that. But
Sure.
what's next for Tracker Products?
So here's the biggest thing that I would say on the horizon, probably two things specifically. We are finally in significant growth mode. Now, again, it's all bootstrap. Like, there is no investment money coming in, but we
I
are
love that too.
finally at a point where we are generating money, where we can start pumping lots of money back into the business. So, for example, over the next year, I fully expect that we're going to add $1 million in reoccurring revenue onto our bottom line. Now, that may not sound like a whole lot, but when you consider it took 12 years to get the first million,
Wow.
to do 1 million in a single year is phenomenal. And we have a 5-year growth plan, which I think now we can far more accurately project our growth and what we're doing, because we've got historical numbers to run with. I think we are going to double in size within 5 years. So to go from 5 million to 10 million, these are numbers that, even in my mind, like, somebody that runs $100 million company may not think much of that. But man, when you started with nothing and you're trying to get $1,000 deals, to be sitting here talking about $10 million in reoccurring revenue, and and pushing towards 65 employees. That's like pie in the sky for me. Like things again that I would have never imagined. But if I could take a minute and share what I think is the bigger thing for us, that purpose I was mentioning earlier was a belief that God had purpose in this company, and that this wasn't just software for trying to make people rich, that this business is a ministry. And so I operate this business with a ministry mindset where the purpose of this company is not to fund and fuel extravagant lifestyles. Now, I want the people in our company to do well, but my purpose in this world is funding kingdom ministry, which is gospel-driven organizations that are out there trying to make a difference in people's lives. So I've got my job. So this is what's been on my heart. God has given me a specific role of being a leader in a company. I didn't realize till 15 years into it almost that you could even have business as a ministry. And so now my wife and I are focused toward how do we give away $100 million? All right. Now, when you're sitting here at even $5 million a year in reoccurring revenue, $100 million sounds extremely dumb. But I have felt that for the last 20 years. And so I have simply laid it before God and said, all right, God, I'm going to do my thing as you've equipped me, but I can't do what this thing is here. But you've laid it on my heart. If you give us the ability to do it, we are going to use this business to fund kingdom-minded people. And that's what we've been. So that's the thing what I have learned is that, we don't go out and just hire Christians. Like that's not our mode at all. We hire the best people that we can, and then we tell everybody when they come in the door, regardless of what your background or faith or persuasion is. It makes no impact on us hiring you at all. But I want you to know where my heart is. And what I found out, this was the thing that has blown me away the most. You take people that may not even believe in what I believe, but you give them purpose in this world, and they act differently. Like people that don't care about like what I believe in God at all. It doesn't matter to them. They have purpose because I sit down and tell them, you can be an admin, you can be a collector, you can be a salesperson. You are a piston in an engine that is trying to accomplish big things in this world, not line my pockets. And I could not, that made me scared to say that to people for many years. So when you said that a little bit earlier, like sharing it with people, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I just don't know to share it with people. I actually was worried about how people were going to react to that.
Yeah.
It was so dumb. Like, it was like, are you kidding me?
Well, I don't know. You didn't work in corporate life like I did. I spent 20 plus years in corporate life, and that was so squelched in that environment.
Yeah, right.
You can't share that. You can't say that. And that's one of the things that's freeing about being a small business owner or me self-employed. I can share that as much as I want. And I'm glad you shared that. I was hoping you would go there because I knew that about you. And I actually got chills when you said give away 20 million. Was it 20? No,
100 million.
100 million. When you said that, I mean, I literally got chills. I mean, that's like crazy to think about. But God bless you for that. And I love that. I was just listening the other day to a podcast. Don't remember which one it was, and I don't know who's done this research and how valid it is, but it just said that the average CEO has, I think it was like 500 or 800, something like that, times more impact than your average minister on Sunday morning. And like I said, I don't know, and I don't remember the exact number. It was a big number, and it was like, I don't know how you do that research, but it seems true because, like you said, you've got 35 people, but then they go out and they are living that, and hopefully they're magnifying that as well.
I shared this with you a while ago,
and all the people hearing it,
Yeah. There's an old quote by Billy Graham. If you go back and look for it on YouTube, he made a statement probably 50 years ago that he felt the next great spiritual awakening in America was going to come through the business marketplace. And so,
Interesting.
I'm in a group called C12, and the whole focus of C12, and they've got thousands of people that are involved across the country. It's working with CEOs like me to turn your business into a ministry. And how do you equip people to do that? And so
Yeah.
for me, that is the entire drive behind what I do. If it was just my own personal gain or the end result, I would be nothing but frustrated at every step of the way, because you can have everything. I mean, look at the Hollywood types, or people that own billion-dollar companies. Like, they're not happy. Why are they not happy? Because they've got billions. Everybody thinks you get billions of dollars, you will
Yeah.
find happiness, and that is as far from the truth as possible. I have found happiness, contentment, joy, and having a greater purpose in this world. And that is using
Yeah.
this business for God. And that's it, period.
Yeah. Amen. And I don't, certainly not every show goes this route, but I've had a few that have gone this way, and I'm so glad they do, because it speaks to my heart, but also,
Sure.
I love hearing people say, yeah, this is true. And it really works.
Well,
Um,
that's what I would share with any person trying to get started. The number one thing you need in this world is purpose, because when you get that, it's a constant source of fuel as to why you're doing what you're doing. And man, when you've got a purpose that big beyond yourself, that fuel never runs out. And
yeah.
so that's why, my 18-year-old has started his own business, and he's doing
Oh,
lawn
wow.
care, and he's got like 50 yards that he cuts, and he just graduated high school. And I love talking with him and pouring into him. And I've got a daughter that's getting into real estate and building her stuff up, because I told them a long time ago, the success that may or may not come with this company is already designated for a larger purpose. I want you to have the same joy and purpose and everything else, and it won't come from me just saying, hey, here's a pile of money, don't work, don't do anything else.
Yeah.
Because this world, if all you're doing is chasing whatever the thing is that this world offers, and it offers a lot of bad stuff, you will never find value in that. I don't care if you're chasing money. You could have billions and you will never find value in the money. You simply won't.
Yeah. Well, folks, I normally have a final question, but you just answered it, which is, what advice would you give to a new business owner or someone starting out? And you just landed it. I mean, you knocked it out of the park with that
Well, let me
about
give a
purpose.
second one. How about I give a
Okay,
second one real quick?
I'll give you one more. One more. Sure.
Here's my second one. This is really quick. Start young when you don't have risk in this world. When you start businesses and you've got a family and kids, the pressures that are on you are so immense. Get over the thought of failure. It's a part of life. So many people are scared to risk anything. There's
Yeah.
risk in everything you do. Start early, run after it, make mistakes early, go for it.
Yeah, I can't agree more, and I'm the opposite of that, because I went into corporate life, and then when I started getting the entrepreneurial bug, and I was probably 30-ish when I first started wanting to do something. I did
Yep,
some side things. I did web development. I did web hosting. I did a lot of little things on the side.
sure.
But I couldn't go all in because I was raising two kids. And then I was putting two kids through college. I got laid off in 2010, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, like, man, I really want to start a business, but I had a sophomore in college and a senior in high school, and I'm like, I
Yep.
can't do that right now. And then it was wedding season, and we had weddings to get through. And finally, it got through all that, and I said, you know what? There's no, there's
Yep.
no reason not to. And that's when 7 years ago, I started my business. That was basically about a year and a half or so after,
Sure.
the last wedding. And I've never looked back, and will never go back. But
I
you're
was
right.
20 years old living in my parents' basement. I didn't
Yeah,
have to worry about whether there was going to be a meal on the table or a
yeah,
place to put my head. I had no cares in this world. And like
yeah,
I didn't realize how integral that was. While people were off partying in college, I
yeah.
didn't do that. I
Yeah, it
was
was there was basically about a 25-year window that it just was, every time I weighed it was like too much. Like, I
Yep.
can't, it's too much. And finally I got through the other side, and I'm like, we're going to do it. And I'm glad that I did.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's some great advice. If you can pull it off, start early.
absolutely.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for being on the show. The inspiration, great story. Real quick, just in case anybody is interested, maybe either working for you or
Sure.
maybe they're in the police world and want to find out more about your product. How do they find you?
Trackerproducts.com is our website. You can go there. We've got job postings, or look me up on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over that platform, so you can get in there and find me. And I'd love to hear from somebody, even if you were just if you're thinking about business or whatever. Reach out. I'm always happy to try to help talk to people.
That's awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been an inspiration, and just really excited for folks to hear everything you've shared.
John, it was great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.